People think medieval castles were warm stone palaces filled with roaring fires, long banquets, and comfortable lives behind thick walls. That image is completely wrong. In reality, most castles were brutally cold places where even kings slept wrapped in layers of fabric just to survive the night. Stone walls didn't protect people from winter. They trapped the cold and slowly released it back into every room like a giant block of ice. For months at a time, life inside a castle meant frozen floors, icy drafts, smoky air, and a daily fight against the cold that never truly went away. Today, we're going to uncover how people actually stayed alive in these stone fortresses long before fireplaces, chimneys, or central heating existed. And some of their solutions were far smarter than you might expect. Before we dive in, take a moment to like the video. Share it with someone who loves real history. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future deep dives into the forgotten realities of the past. Now, let's get straight into how people survived the cold inside medieval castles. The truth about castle walls and cold. The massive stone walls of castles were built for war, not warmth. Their thickness was designed to absorb the impact of siege weapons, not to insulate living spaces. Stone is one of the worst materials for retaining heat, and once winter set in, those walls absorbed the cold from the outside air and radiated it inward day and night. No matter how large the fire, the walls stayed cold, and that cold dominated everything. Windows were narrow slits meant for defence, not light or ventilation, and they funneled icy wind straight into living spaces. Glass was rare, expensive, and often removed and reused elsewhere, so most windows were sealed with wood, parchment, or cloth, which did little to stop drafts. Tapestries were survival tools, not decoration. What looks like decoration in medieval castles was actually insulation. Thick wool tapestries were hung along stone walls to create a layer of trapped air between fabric and stone. That air warmed slightly from body heat and nearby fires and acted as a barrier against the cold radiating from the walls. Rooms with tapestries could feel noticeably warmer, and in winter that difference mattered. These hangings also blocked drafts from doors and windows and softened echoes in vast stone halls. For those who couldn't afford tapestries, animal skins, woven mats, or even layered cloth served the same purpose. Fabric was one of the most important defensive tools against the cold. Clothing was, in fact, the real heating system. Medieval people didn't really heat their buildings. They heated themselves, you see. Clothing wasn't just a matter of fashion or simple costumes, as films often show. It was actually a carefully designed system of layers. Linen was worn closest to the skin, since it absorbed sweat and kept the body dry. Over that, there were usually multiple layers of wool, which, interestingly enough, retained heat even when damp. Each layer trapped air, creating insulation. Now, outer garments were often lined with fur, which was honestly incredibly effective at stopping heat loss. Heads, necks, hands and feet were always covered, even indoors. People wore gloves inside, kept their hoods up, and layered wool stockings. In a way, people essentially carried their warmth with them everywhere they went. The hearth, truly the heart of life and heat. Before chimneys, the main source of warmth was a large open hearth, placed right in the centre of the great hall. It burned constantly both day and night and consumed enormous amounts of wood. Smoke would rise upward and escape through a hole in the roof, though, well, much of it stayed inside, coating the walls in soot and filling lungs with irritation. The hearth didn't really warm the air effectively. It warmed people and objects nearby through radiant heat. Step just a few feet away, and honestly, the cold returned instantly. Social hierarchy was even visible in how close you sat to the fire. The closer you were, the higher your status. Braziers and local heat now. To warm private chambers, people used brazier bowls filled with glowing charcoal. These portable heat sources provided warmth to small rooms, but, well, they came with serious risks. Carbon monoxide poisoning was common, and rooms had to be aired out even during freezing weather. Despite the danger, braziers were absolutely essential for creating small islands of warmth in otherwise frozen spaces. They were also placed under tables to warm feet or carried in smaller forms by nobles to warm their hands. Now, beds were not just pieces of furniture, they were, in fact, survival structures. A noble bed, for instance, was surrounded by thick curtains on all sides, creating a small enclosed space that, well, trapped body heat quite effectively. Feather mattresses, straw insulation, wool blankets, and fur covers all combined to turn the bed into the warmest place in the entire castle. People would even place hot stones or heated containers inside before sleep, just to keep the chill at bay. And, interestingly enough, multiple people often slept together for warmth, guests, children, and servants alike. The bed, really, was the final defence against the cold, a room within a room, designed purely for survival. Food as fuel against the cold. You know, medieval diets were really built for warmth. Thick stews, fatty meats, dense bread and hot drinks weren't exactly considered luxury. They were, in fact, fuel. Fat provided long-lasting energy to maintain body temperature. And, well, hot meals warmed people from the inside out. Spiced wine and ale were consumed regularly, especially during the winter months. Even drinking cold water in a cold room was something people tried to avoid. Food was absolutely part of the heating system, just as essential as firewood. Castle design and the sun. Builders back then used natural knowledge to reduce cold without much fuel. Castles were often placed on sunlit slopes, with living quarters facing south to catch as much winter sunlight as possible. Stone walls would absorb solar warmth during the day and then, quite cleverly, release it slowly at night. The cold northern sides were usually reserved for storage and stairwells, acting as buffers against those icy winds. Courtyards could trap sunlight and create warmer microclimates. Straw-covered floors insulated feet from the frozen stone and earth, and, well, herbs were added to reduce odour and keep pests at bay. The chimney changed everything. The invention of wall-mounted fireplaces with chimneys really transformed life. Smoke could be vented outside, rooms could be heated individually, and, for the first time, privacy became possible. Castles gradually shifted from communal survival spaces to actual homes. Comfort, as a concept, finally began to exist. But for centuries before that moment, survival depended on layers, fabric, fire, food, and adaptation, not technology. Life in a medieval castle wasn't exactly romantic. It was a constant intelligent struggle against the cold. Every object, every habit, and every architectural choice served one purpose: staying alive through the winter. These people didn't really defeat the cold. They learned to live with it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into real medieval life, do subscribe to the channel, share this video with a fellow history lover, and leave a comment with what surprised you most. More forgotten truths of the past are coming soon.